It started like nothing. A sunny afternoon, a small cafe lot. Officer Zora Ellison was parked across the street, finishing her report when she noticed it. A silver SUV swinging hard into a handicap space. No placard, no permit, no hesitation. She narrowed her eyes. A man stepped out, white, late 40s, expensive shoes, smug posture. He didn't limp, didn't look around. Just adjusted his blazer and strode toward the cafe like he owned the sidewalk. Ellison stepped out of her cruiser, adjusting her duty belt. "You planning to move that car?" she called out, calm but clear. The man barely looked back. "I'm grabbing a coffee. 2 minutes." Ellison shook her head and started walking. That's when Serena Williams walked out of the cafe. She paused mid-step, watching the exchange. The officer's voice, the tone, it caught Serena's attention. She approached slowly, curiosity sharpening into concern. "You know that's a handicap spot, right?" Serena said, standing just a few feet away. The man turned and instantly recognized her. His smirk widened. "Wow, Serena Williams, telling me how to park now?" Ellison stepped between them without flinching. "Name doesn't change the law. You're violating state code." Serena crossed her arms, and just like that, lines were drawn. The man let out a short laugh, one of those low, arrogant chuckles that reeked of entitlement. "Look," he said, reaching into his inner jacket pocket. "Before we make a big deal out of nothing." He flashed a leather badge holder. "Detective Mark Talbot, Miami-Dade. So, technically, I'm law enforcement too." Officer Ellison didn't blink. "Then you should know better," she said, voice flat but firm. "Badge or not, that's an illegal parking violation." Serena watched closely, her arms still crossed, expression unreadable, but her body language said it all. She was with Ellison. And that meant something. Talbot scoffed. "You're really writing up a fellow officer over this?" Ellison nodded once. "Yes." Serena stepped a little closer, not to escalate, but to make it clear she wasn't going anywhere. Talbot noticed. "Of course," he muttered. "Got the celebrity backup now. That explains the attitude." That made Ellison pause. "This has nothing to do with her," she said slowly. "This is about the law and respect." "Respect?" Talbot repeated. "I've served this city for 22 years. "And I've served it without abusing my authority," Ellison replied. A few bystanders nearby had started watching. Phones weren't out yet, but you could feel the tension shift, like people were waiting for the next move. Serena glanced around. She'd seen situations like this turned sideways before, but this time, she was staying right where she was. Detective Talbot took a step closer, too close. His voice wasn't calm anymore. "So that's it? You're writing me up. For what, making a coffee run without a sticker?" He laughed again, but this time it cracked at the edges. Ellison didn't flinch. She stood her ground, eyes steady, voice even. "For illegally parking in a designated handicap space. Yes, that's the law." Talbot's face flushed. "Give me a break. You see drug dealers every damn day, and this is how you spend your time?" Before Ellison could respond, Serena stepped in, calm but commanding. "She's doing her job. And honestly, if this is how you act with a badge, you should be glad someone's watching." Talbot turned sharply. "Excuse me?" "You're excused," Serena said, cool as steel. A few people nearby let out quiet gasps. Now the phones were out. The moment was live. Ellison turned toward the small group forming nearby. "This is an official citation. Everyone, please give us space." But it was too late. Someone across the street shouted, "He just thinks he's above the law." Another added, "Let her do her job." Talbot's jaw clenched. "You all finished?" Ellison looked him in the eye. "No, but I'm just getting started." Talbot's face twisted into a smug grin, but the tension in his shoulders gave him away. "You know what this is," he said loudly. "This is a power trip. A rookie officer trying to flex in front of a celebrity and a couple of iPhones." Ellison remained calm, but her jaw tightened. Serena, though, had heard enough. She stepped forward, not with anger, but with quiet authority. "You think this is new?" she asked, her voice low but firm. "You think this is the first time I've watched someone like you try to intimidate a black woman for doing her job?" Talbot hesitated. He wasn't expecting that. Serena continued. I was 19 when a cop followed me home after practice. No reason, no questions, just followed. Slow, silent, waiting for me to mess up. She took a breath. I've never forgotten that feeling. The crowd was quiet now. She's not on a power trip, Serena said, nodding toward Officer Ellison. She's doing what most people are too scared to do, hold people accountable. Ellison didn't speak, but her eyes flicked toward Serena, just for a moment. There was a shared understanding there, between women who knew what it meant to be underestimated in uniforms and tennis shoes alike. Talbot broke the silence. This is ridiculous. Ellison calmly pulled out the citation pad. No, she said. This is justice. Delayed maybe, but not denied. Detective Talbot's face was burning now, part rage, part embarrassment. He looked at the crowd, at the phones, at Serena Williams standing beside the officer who refused to flinch. He realized it wasn't going his way, not today. Fine, he muttered, snatching the citation from Ellison's hand. Congratulations, you made your point. No, Ellison replied quietly. You made mine. Talbot turned on his heel and stormed back toward his SUV, still illegally parked. Someone in the crowd called out, You gonna move it, or you need help reading the sign again? A ripple of uneasy laughter spread, but Serena didn't smile. She just watched. Talbot climbed into his vehicle, slammed the door, and peeled out of the space without another word. The moment he drove off, a murmur of applause broke out. Small, scattered, not celebratory, just relieved. Ellison stood still, shoulders square, not basking in the moment, just breathing through it. Serena finally spoke again, this time directly to Ellison. Thank you. Not just for writing a ticket, but for standing your ground. Ellison nodded, finally letting a trace of emotion show. Too many people look away. Serena met her eyes. I don't. Around them, the phones were still recording. But now the story wasn't about a ticket. It was about a woman who didn't back down. By that evening, the video had already made the rounds. Someone uploaded it to TikTok with the caption, When Serena Williams stands with justice, not just on the court. 3 million views in 4 hours. The clip was raw, no filters, no edits. Just a black female officer standing firm, and Serena Williams beside her, calm but powerful. It hit harder than most headlines. People weren't just sharing the video, they were talking about abuse of power, about accountability, about what it means to protect and serve everyone, not just the ones who flash a badge. But for Officer Zora Ellison, it didn't feel like fame. It felt like exposure. She sat alone on her couch that night, still in uniform, TV off, phone buzzing non-stop. She hadn't posted a thing. Then she saw the message. It was from her high school civics teacher. You always said you'd change the system from inside. Just wanted you to know. Today, you did. Zora stared at the message for a long time. Her fingers trembled slightly, but not from fear, from release. Because for the first time in her career, someone saw not just her badge, but her backbone. Long before the badge, long before the uniform, Zora Ellison was just a kid in the back of a patrol car, not as a suspect, but as a daughter. She was 9 the first time her mom got pulled over. A busted taillight, a routine stop. Except it wasn't. Zora remembered every detail, the way the officers spoke, loud, clipped, like they were dangerous. The way her mother's hands shook as she reached for her registration. The way Zora's little brother cried when the flashlight beamed through his window like a warning. They didn't get a ticket. Just humiliation and a warning. Next time, fix it before I stop you again. That night, Zora asked her mom why they were treated like that. Her mother just said, Some folks see a badge and think it makes them better than people. That's not what it's supposed to mean. Zora never forgot. Years later, when she pinned that badge to her chest, she didn't do it for power. She did it to protect kids like her, who didn't understand why justice felt so one-sided. And now, standing in a viral spotlight she never asked for, she hoped the little girl in the back seat would be proud. Because this time, the badge had done what it was supposed to. Detective Mark Talbot walked into the precinct like he always did. Head high, steps loud, expecting nods and deference. But that day felt different. The bullpen quieted slightly when he entered, not out of respect, out of hesitation. He'd seen the clip too. He watched it on the drive-in, jaw clenched, convinced it would blow over. It always did, but the looks from his colleagues told a different story. Nobody made eye contact. No one laughed at his usual sarcastic remarks. He approached his captain's office, knocking once before stepping in. Captain Rivera looked up from his desk, face unreadable. "You see the video?" Talbot asked, trying to play it cool. Rivera nodded slowly. "We all did." Talbot shrugged. "It's being blown out of proportion. I was just trying to get coffee, and she escalated it." "She followed the book," Rivera interrupted. "You didn't." Talbot blinked. "So what, she's a hero now?" Rivera's expression hardened. "No, Talbot. She's what a cop should be. And you're an example of what we can't afford anymore." For the first time in years, Talbot felt something unfamiliar inside this building. Disgrace. He turned to leave, but Rivera added one last line, cold and clear. "You should think about taking some leave before it becomes permanent." Later that night, Serena sat alone on her balcony, city lights blinking in the distance, her phone buzzing nonstop on the table beside her. She wasn't checking it, not the tags, not the mentions. She already knew what they were saying: praise, outrage, debate. But her mind wasn't on the internet. It was somewhere else. A memory she hadn't spoken of in years. She was 16, fresh off a tournament win, still in her tennis gear, riding in the passenger seat as her dad drove them back through a quiet neighborhood. They got pulled over, no reason given, no ticket issued, just a long flashlight inspection and a lecture about watching their speed. Even though they weren't speeding, she remembered the way her father gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, how he said, "Yes, sir," and "Of course, sir," with eyes that screamed, "Don't give them a reason." That night planted something in her, a mix of fire, fear, and clarity. And today, when she saw Officer Ellison stand firm, she saw the opposite of that fear. She saw power, not loud, not flashy, just rooted. She stood with her because she wished someone had stood like that when she was 16. And now, she could be that someone. By the next morning, Officer Zora Ellison's inbox was flooded. Messages from retired officers, emails from parents, voicemails from strangers around the country. "You stood up and didn't back down. My daughter wants to be a cop now, because of you. Thank you for showing them what the badge is supposed to mean." She scrolled through quietly, overwhelmed but composed. She hadn't asked to be a symbol. She just didn't look away. But with the support came shadows. An unmarked envelope slipped under her windshield. Inside, nothing but a crumpled parking citation, scratched out, and the words, "Watch your step." Anonymous accounts began flooding her department's social media. Old arrest footage clipped and edited to look incriminating. Conspiracy threads calling her a plant, a radical, a disgrace to the badge. Ellison stared at one of the comments, jaw clenched. The badge didn't protect her from hate, just made her easier to aim at. Her captain called her in that afternoon. "You okay?" he asked, voice lower than usual. She hesitated, then nodded. "I've been through worse." He nodded back. "Good, because you're about to be nominated for a Community Integrity Award. Just thought you should hear it from me first." Ellison exhaled slowly. The spotlight was harsh, but maybe now it was finally worth standing in. The sun was setting when Serena pulled up outside the local youth center. Inside, the air buzzed with excitement. Dozens of teens, volunteers, coaches. Not because of the snacks or the music, because two women were coming who had shown them what courage looked like in real time. Officer Zora Ellison arrived just minutes later, out of uniform, wearing jeans and a navy blazer. She looked different without the badge, but still carried the same quiet strength. When she stepped into the room beside Serena Williams, the cheers erupted. Not idol worship, not celebrity hype, respect. They weren't there for a press event. There were no mics, no red carpets, just an open circle of chairs and a room full of kids ready to listen. One girl, maybe 14, stood up first. "How do you stay calm when people treat you like you don't belong?" she asked, voice small. Zora answered softly. "You remember who raised you, you remember what you stand for. And you breathe through the noise, because their fear doesn't define your power." Serena added, "You don't shrink to make others comfortable. You rise, even when you're the only one standing." And in that moment, two women who once stood in very different lanes now stood side by side, lighting the path for the ones coming next. Detective Talbot sat stiffly in the Internal Affairs office, the silence more suffocating than any courtroom. Across the table sat two investigators, both stone-faced, flipping through a slim but damning folder, screenshots, witness statements, the citation, and of course, the viral video. He'd been here before, but this time was different. There was no wink, no handshake, no quiet dismissal. "Detective Talbot," one of them began, "this department is placing you on indefinite administrative leave pending the outcome of this investigation." Talbot opened his mouth, ready to object, but there it was, in black and white. The charges: abuse of authority, public misconduct, failure to comply with code of conduct. "What about my years of service?" he said, voice cracking with a mix of anger and disbelief. "What about everything I've done for this city?" The lead investigator didn't flinch. "You let the badge speak louder than the people it's meant to protect." He was told to turn in his firearm, his badge, and leave the premises. The walk back through the precinct was the longest of his career. No one spoke. No one nodded. Some didn't even look up. He passed a bulletin board where someone had tacked up a flyer for an upcoming community award ceremony. Right in the center was a photo of Officer Zora Ellison. He didn't stop, didn't say a word, but for the first time, he understood what silence really felt like. The auditorium wasn't packed with celebrities or flashing cameras, just neighbors, teachers, kids in button-down shirts, and elders in Sunday best. It was the kind of crowd that clapped with both hands and their hearts. On stage stood a banner that read, "Community Integrity Award, honoring Officer Zora Ellison." Serena arrived quietly, slipping into the second row. No glam team, no entourage. Just her, a bouquet of sunflowers, and a quiet sense of purpose. When Ellison's name was called, the standing ovation started before she took a single step. She walked up slowly, not because she was nervous, but because she understood the weight of what this moment meant. It wasn't about a viral video anymore. It was about every kid who ever wondered if the system could be on their side. She took the mic, steady. "I didn't write that ticket to prove a point," she said. "I wrote it because that space was sacred. Because someone who needed it could have come and found it blocked. And because when we ignore small injustices, we invite bigger ones." She paused. "I wore this badge hoping it could mean something. Thanks to all of you and one woman who stood beside me when it mattered. It finally does." Ellison looked directly at Serena. Their eyes met. No words needed. Just the kind of recognition only shared experience can carry. Later that night, Officer Ellison sat in her mother's living room, still holding the plaque in her lap like it was breakable. The ceremony was over, the applause had faded. But something inside her was still ringing, loud and steady. Her mother, a retired nurse with kind eyes and calloused hands, poured them both tea without saying much. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "I watched you up there," she said, "and I kept thinking about the first time you told me you wanted to be a cop." Ellison smiled faintly. "You were scared." "I was terrified," her mother admitted. "Not because I didn't believe in you, but because I knew what the world does to Black women who stand too tall." Zora looked down at the plaque. "It took everything not to shrink." "But you didn't," her mother said softly. "You stood your ground. And you did it with grace." Ellison felt her throat tighten. "It's just, I didn't expect it to mean this much." Her mother reached over and placed her hand gently on Zora's. "That's because it's not just about the law. It's about showing up for people who think no one ever will." Outside, the street was quiet. But inside, something in Ellison had finally settled. Not pride, peace. A week later, Serena sat down for a brief interview. Not on a talk show, not at a press junket, but on a community podcast run by two local high schoolers. They asked her about tennis, about balance, about legacy. But near the end, one of them leaned forward and asked, "What made you speak up that day?" Serena paused, not because she didn't know the answer, but because it deserved the right words. I think, she began, we all have moments when we can look away. Keep walking. Let someone else handle it. She glanced down at her hands, the same hands that had gripped rackets, carried trophies, and held babies. But some moments ask you to stand still, to witness, to say, this isn't right, even if your voice shakes. She smiled softly. I've won a lot of titles, but standing beside Officer Ellison that day, that was different. That wasn't about winning. That was about being present when it counted. The podcast ended quietly, without fanfare. But the clip went viral anyway. It wasn't the fame that made it spread. It was the truth. Because justice doesn't always come with sirens or speeches. Sometimes it comes when one woman writes a ticket, and another refuses to look away. And together, they remind the world what standing tall really looks like.